All right, let's talk about something that pretty much everyone remembers. School trips. You know, those moments of learning that happen way outside the classroom walls. They can be absolutely transformative, creating memories that stick with you for life. But what does it actually take to make one of these trips happen? Well, that's what we're going to get into today.
Just for a second, think back. I bet you can picture it right now. Maybe it was a trip to a museum, or a historical battlefield, or even just a day exploring a local forest. You remember that feeling, right? That spark of discovery when you see something from a textbook come to life right in front of you. That is the absolute magic of experiential learning. And man, does it leave an impact.
Okay, so while we're all remembering the fun, the educators who try to make that magic happen, well, they often run into a giant wall of frustration. The truth is, planning these trips is almost never simple. It is full of roadblocks that can stop an incredible idea dead in its tracks. So let's actually break those barriers down and figure out how to get through them.
First up, let's talk about the biggest, most common hurdle of them all, money and access. This is usually the first and last conversation about a school trip. How do we make it possible not just for some students, but for every single student who wants to go? And what's so tough is how all these things are connected. You've got the school, which has a super limited budget, so of course, there's not a lot of extra cash for trips. That pressure then trickles down to the students and their families, and that's where things get really tricky. A student's socioeconomic status can suddenly become the deciding factor, which creates these huge inequities in who actually gets to go. It's just a really frustrating cycle.
So, what do you do? I mean, bake sales and car washes are great, but they often don't cut it. The source material we looked at points to a much more powerful and, honestly, smarter solution. You build equity directly into the financial plan for the trip right from the very beginning.
And check this out. This is how simple it can be. You start with your base cost. Let's say it's $1,000 per student. Then, for every single person going on the trip, you add a small, totally manageable scholarship fee. In this case, just $25. So the new cost is $1,025. For one person, that's not a huge difference, but when you multiply it, that's where the magic happens. And here's the payoff. With just 100 travelers, each chipping in that tiny $25 fee, you've suddenly created a scholarship fund of $2,500. That's enough to completely cover the cost for 2 students, or seriously help out a bunch more who would have been left behind otherwise. This little tweak is a total game changer.
Okay, so let's say you figured out the funding. Awesome. Now you run headfirst into the next roadblock, the absolutely overwhelming logistical puzzle. This is where things can get messy.
Yeah, this is so much more than just booking a bus, right? You're trying to juggle crazy schedules, figure out insurance, deal with liability forms, and have rock-solid emergency plans for every single kid. Student safety is, of course, priority number 1, but as you can see, the sheer number of details to track is just a massive, massive burden for any teacher or administrator.
But just like with the money problem, the solution here is surprisingly simple. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The answer is to find and partner with a qualified tour provider. These companies live and breathe this stuff. They already have the logistics, the insurance, and the backup plans ready to go, which basically takes this entire tangled mess right off the school's shoulders.
All right, let's move on to our last big category of challenges. I like to call this one the people, plans, and paperwork problem. It's all about making the trip work with the curriculum, with the staff, and with all that fun administrative red tape.
Okay, so a trip can't just be a fun day out, right? For it to get approved, it has to clearly connect back to what students are actually learning in the classroom. The trick here is to be proactive. You can go online and find your state and national curriculum standards, and then you literally map those learning goals to potential destinations. This way, you can walk into the principal's office with a powerful case for the trip's educational value already made.
Oh, this is a huge one. Let's be real, these trips don't happen without amazing teachers and chaperones stepping up. But asking them to take on all this extra work and responsibility, often for no extra pay, that is a fast track to burnout. So how do you keep your staff from getting completely overwhelmed?
Well, here's some really practical, brilliant solutions. To fight burnout, you do the same thing we did for the students. You build a teacher stipend right into the trip's cost. To deal with packed schedules, you do a deep dive into the district's calendar. You'd be surprised by the hidden opportunities you can find. And to cut through that admin red tape, a super clear, step-by-step timeline keeps everybody on track and on the same page.
So, as we start to wrap this up, it's pretty clear that while these roadblocks are very real, they are not impossible to get past.
With the right game plan, these barriers can go from being obstacles to being runways, launching your school's next incredible learning adventure.
So here it is, your action plan boiled down to the absolute essentials. You solved the funding and equity problem with a built-in scholarship. You solved the logistical nightmare by working with a professional. You tackled teacher burnout with built-in stipends, and you proved the trip is worth it by mapping it directly to the curriculum. See, it's manageable.
And that brings us to the end. The question really isn't if these trips are worth the effort. We know they are. The only question left is, if you're out there planning one, which one of these barriers are you going to break down first? Thanks for watching.